Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPad mini 7th generation and compare it against the iPad mini 6th generation and see which particular iPad is the better one for you. Now, the first thing I would definitely tell you is in almost every single way you can imagine, something like the iPad mini 7 is probably going to be the better one here for the everyday average person. Like, if you're going to go through and pick up a device, it definitely makes a lot more sense to go and buy something like an iPad mini 7, to be honest. But I think the mini 6 still has a lot of capability. I think it's still a very good, iPad to pick up as well. So you can kind of go down whichever way you want to go. But that's kind of how I see both these iPads holding up from that perspective. But if you want to pick up either one of these iPads throughout this whole entire video, links will be down in the description. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these particular iPads, a very big thing to keep in mind here is that in my personal opinion, the iPad mini 6, which came out back in 2021, still looks and feels very good. These two iPads are relatively built almost the same exact way. You couldn't really tell too many differences between both, maybe how the power button and volume buttons are set up. But other than that, there's a lot of overlap here for sure. So for one, the same 8.3-inch liquid retina, display on the iPad mini 6 still looks great. Still not too many things to complain about here besides the jelly scrolling some people had early on, which was apparently fixed. And number two, a really big issue some people have issues with nowadays, especially me, is the 60Hz display. I feel like on an iPad like this, you should be getting a better type of display, and we're still basically stuck at, 60Hz. So I feel like this in and of itself is a really, really big deal, and I feel like this in and of itself is not a good thing going on for the iPad mini 6. Now, on the iPad mini 7, it's a little bit of a more interesting story because even with the iPad mini 6, you could make the, kind of excuse that, okay, it came out a couple of years ago, okay, 60Hz is okay then. The iPad mini 7 for still having 60Hz, I feel like is very annoying. And I feel like it should definitely be giving you, at least 90Hz here and there, right? So with this iPad, same 8.3-inch liquid retina display, you're getting the same True Tone type of thing, anti-reflective coating. So essentially the same type of build, the same type of experience kind of going on between both. And they're basically the same type of displays. It's just weird that on the iPad mini 7, we didn't get any higher refresh rate, where I feel like Apple could have probably done something like that. So from that side in and of itself, kind of covers it up on the front side. Both are giving you flat sides with Apple Pencil, 2 support. You're getting Apple Pencil Pro support too if you want to. USB Type-C ports on the bottom, which are great. Power buttons, volume buttons, and different sides, but it's still very cool. And on top of that, you're basically getting essentially the same type of styling on the backside as well. Like if you let me feel an iPad mini 7 and an iPad mini 6, I would not be able to tell any differences at all. They look relatively almost the exact same thing. And I think that in and of itself is a pretty crazy thing. The fact that you can pick up either one of these types of iPads and feel like you're basically getting the same type of iPad here is pretty crazy. From that side in and of itself, I do think it is a pretty crazy thing going on for this type of device. So from that side, I think that kind of covers it up on the exterior. From the price tag side though, the iPad mini 7 is giving you a $679 price tag right now. With the Wi-Fi and cell model, it's $879. With the iPad mini 6, you can't really buy it brand new anymore, but you're able to buy it in the used market if you want to. And that particular iPad is substantially cheaper. You can buy an iPad mini 6 in this day and age for a lot less money than an iPad mini 7. So if you're wanting to go and get the one that is a better value per dollar, it might make more sense to go and buy something like an iPad mini 6 in the used market rather than buying something like an iPad mini 7 in the brand new market. But you could also wait until the iPad mini 7 gets a little bit cheaper. But from that side, from the brand new perspective, from the price tag standpoint, that kind of covers it up there a little bit too. Now on top of that, when it comes down to the camera side, both are basically giving you essentially the same type of camera. So there's not really anything super insane or crazy or different that's going on between these two devices as of this point. So they're both giving you 12 megapixel wide angle cameras right now, which is great. It's 4K video on the backside, which again is a very, very nice thing. And I'm sure if you're going to get a camera and film something, both these cameras are going to be giving you a really, really good experience when it comes down to it for an iPad. But here's the thing I'll probably tell you, right? If you're owning anything like an iPhone, like an iPhone 12, iPhone 13 type of camera or newer, your camera in your phone is probably going to be giving you a better experience than these types of cameras. So these are just single wide angle cameras. They're not anything super crazy. They're just great if you're just trying to take a quick picture and your iPhone's not around you, or you're taking FaceTime or video calls. Then this thing does a pretty good job. But if you're not trying to do that, then both these cameras probably aren't going to be that great. They're not going to be this massive upgrade coming from any other iPad that you're coming from. So, they're definitely not the best type of experience you could be getting. They're not terrible, But just keep in mind that if you're wanting like the best type of camera, these two are not even going to be giving you that from iPad standards. But they're good enough to get the job done. But when they both compare against each other, it's relatively the same exact type of camera. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there. In terms of which one's going to last longer though, this is probably going to be a pretty big difference. So there's probably a really big chance where the iPad mini 7 is probably going to last 2 to 3 years longer than the iPad mini 6. So this is something that's actually really nice when you're going through and getting something like an iPad mini 7, you are going to be getting a longer lasting device here. And this is something that I like a lot about that type of iPad, because you're able to go ahead and pick up an iPad like an iPad mini 7 and have an iPad that's going to last you at least like another like 2 years or 3 years on top of the iPad mini 6. But with that being said, the iPad mini 6 is still going to be here for the next couple of years too. So it's not really like missing out on too many things, anytime soon, but you are still going to be getting a device on both that are still going to be supported for at least a couple more years. And on Apple's own website, they do kind of mention from a battery life standpoint on like which one's going to last longer. And from a battery life standpoint, they both kind of state that you're getting relatively almost the same type of battery. But I would imagine that the iPad mini 7 is probably going to last a tad bit longer. So if you're going to go through and like pick up an iPad, it probably makes a lot more sense for them to go ahead and basically look at something like an iPad mini 7 and think that that's going to be the longer lasting one there in terms of battery life because of a better, more optimized chipset. On top of that, the performance level is very interesting. So a big thing to kind of keep in mind is that with something like an iPad mini 7, you are getting, Apple Intelligence. With the iPad mini 6, you're not getting that. But on top of that, when it comes down to the performance level, you're getting the Apple A15 body chip inside of the iPad mini 6, whereas on the iPad mini 7, you're getting the Apple A17 Pro chipset. So in my personal opinion, if you're going to go through and like pick up a device, definitely once again in almost every single way, an iPad mini 7 is going to be giving you a very, very good type of experience. And it's going to be the faster phone here. But the thing that's very interesting, you're also getting more RAM inside of the iPad mini 7. But the thing that's interesting is that with something like the iPad mini 7, from as far as I can tell, you're definitely getting, fast phones, fast iPads on both. You're not really going to notice too many differences when it comes down to both of them. But definitely with something like the iPad mini 7, this is going to be the faster one. But it kind of, again, just kind of depends on what you're going to end up doing. So from my personal opinion, that kind of covers it up there too. Now beyond that, another very big thing to keep in mind here too, is that with the iPad mini 7, you're also going to go through and basically get a tablet that's going to be better, right? The iPad mini 7 is the overall better iPad here in every single way you can imagine. So if you're going to go through and pick up an iPad, that is going to be the one that is going to be the better performing one here. But with the iPad mini 6, I think this is the one that I think for a value per dollar standpoint is probably going to be the better one. Like if you're going to go through pick up an iPad for a cheaper price tag, it's probably going to be that one that I think is going to be the better, cheaper priced one. But I think something like the iPad mini 6 is still also very good. So that's kind of how I see both these iPads kind of holding up from that particular perspective. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.